Good morning. Welcome back on this Monday. Glad you guys are back. Hey, we're going to continue talking about, a lot about ecosystems like we went through last week. We're going to review a little bit of what we went through last week, Friday, with the different types of animals in the ecosystems and things like that. Strongly suggest you open up to pages 89. That's really going to help you out. I do want you to understand what the assignment is here. Here's the deal. I'm actually kind of, and the reason is so you understand how a food works. That's what we're going to talk about today. But I want you to actually draw, color the food web on page 88 and 89. Now for your assignments, this is what I gave you, just simply a blank page. I also have this attached, and please notice this is an example. So what I not want you guys to do is just to take this and color it, okay? Don't do that. It's not the assignment. This is an example just in case you misplaced your science book or don't have your science book. This is what a food web is, so you understand. But I'm actually going to ask you, just as it says, open up to page 88 and 89 in your science books and draw, color, and label the food web. Again, if you don't have your books, you can copy from the stapled sheet. Not color the stapled sheet. On this blank sheet here, draw, color, and label it. But hey, spoiler alert, this is what a food web is. Shows you all the different animals and the different producers or plants that are in different ecosystems and how they all interact, which is what we talked about, what happens in the ecosystem. Now, let's explain that a little bit more, but first, a little bit of review here. I'm not going to take a long time on each of these because we went through this last week Friday. But you do need to understand and remember the organisms in the ecosystem, right? Herbivores are animals that eat only plants, A zebra, a cow, some of the famous ones. Their teeth are really flat. Again, hope you guys didn't think this is too gross, but these are ones back here in your mouth that you use to chew. Those are your. That's all you need to do with those teeth. That's why they're flat and strong. Those are herbivores. Now, not every herbivore is. There's some very small herbivores. A lot of herbivores are very, very large, some of the biggest animals, and a lot of them go in herds, right? That's because the next animal we talk about is a carnivore. These are generally not as prevalent or not as many of them, but they are the ones that eat other animals. Right? They're the ones that take down the zebra or water buffalo or things like that. They only eat meat or other animals. You can see the type of teeth that they have, and the very reason why is because, as you see in this picture, they have to rip the meat off the bone very literally. Just like this right here, I should say these teeth on each side, because when you go to Church's Chicken or KFC and you have that chicken bone, you gotta go, and you gotta do that same thing, and you use those teeth right there, your sharper ones. Try giving a lion or this cheetah or leopard a plate of salad. It's not going to do anything with it. It needs meat. Now there's animals like us. Omnivores eat meat, right? Bears and monkeys are some of the famous ones, but again, look in the mirror and you see them because you do the same thing. In fact, that's why your mouth is that God made our mouth, with the both types of teeth. To eat both meat and plants. Same with the bear's mouth and a monkey's mouth. All omnivores, right? Now, the reason I reviewed that is because that's what you're going to see in food chains. Now, one important thing I want you to remember, let me say it again, every single food chain always starts with the sun. Every single one. And the reason for that is because the next step on a food chain is plants. And you guys know, if you don't have sun, you don't have plants. You can give plants all the water you want, you can breathe on it, give it all the carbon dioxide you want, but if you don't give it sun, you're not having plants. That's why plants are next on the food chain. And if you notice how it's kind of going up in steps, right? Because grass or plants get their food from the sun. So they use the sun's energy to make their food, right? And then what eats plants? Herbivores, right, right, herbivores. Doesn't have to be the zebra, but for this example of a food chain, it's the zebra. And then, what eats other animals? You got it, that's the carnivore. Now, you might have heard this before, that a lion is the top of the food chain. This is what they're talking about. The lion's at the top of the food chain. There's a reason that lions can sit there underneath the big, small tree and kind of rest in the shade and yawn and not have a care in the world, because he hunts lions, right? There's not another step I'm missing on this food chain, some big, huge, giant rat bird that's going to hunt lions. It doesn't happen. Lions don't have to watch their back for something coming to eat them, because they're the top of the food chain. Zebras, they do need to watch out. They do need to stay in their herd with strength in numbers, right? But this is what you need to understand in an ecosystem. Let's say if you can picture this, let's say I took the zebras out. Now, we're kind of getting ahead of ourselves with the food web, but if you take the zebras out, and that's the only animal that lions can eat, are lions going to be eaten? Absolutely not. You guys know this. The lion can all of a sudden say, yup, okay, we don't have any zebras. Right, so you can't do that. You can't do that. Same with the zebra. If you would take the plant section out, right? Let's say this section, the grass, there's no more grass. The zebras can't all of a sudden say, hey, I'm going to turn the lions and eat the lions. Or the zebra can't say, I'll just sit out and make my food from the sun like plants do. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. You have to always follow the food chain, and it always goes up, right? Now, if you want another example of a food chain, let's stick a little bit closer to home. Do you remember what the food chain always starts with? The sun. Every food chain starts with the sun because every plant makes their food from the sun's energy. Just like a prickly pear, cactus a little closer to home. Now, going up the food chain, what comes next? Not a carnivore, because plants, right? It's got to be an herbivore, which in this case, we got a nice javelina, huh? A cute little baby javelina, right? They'll eat the prickly pear. God made their mouths so tough and strong that they can actually eat the prickly pear. And then what comes next? Then we have the carnivores at the top of the food chain, and that's where we have our coyote friends coming in. Remember, if the javelina were all gone, the coyote can't just say, oh, I'll start eating prickly pear now. It doesn't work that way. Food chain always has to start with the sun, and always goes sun, plants, herbivores, carnivores. The only way that would change is if you remember we throw an omnivore in there. Because if we have a bear, well, a bear can eat some berries, or a bear can eat some fish, right? But with herbivores and carnivores, now, you might think when we're talking about this cruel up there, that there's those dead carcasses all around. Well, God in His infinite thought of everything, because another thing in our ecosystems that we might not think about, but are incredibly important, and that's something that's called decomposers. What decomposers do is simply digest the waste and remains of dead plants and animals. They actually break it down and put it back into the soil, and so it's an amazing cycle God made. Think of all the energy in all the food it ate, right? All the grass it ate. That's how it gets its energy. Well, think of all the energy in grass it got from the sun making its food. All that energy gets wasted if it's dead, except for the decomposers. If the lion doesn't eat the whole zebra carcass, the decomposers come in, and maybe the reason we don't think about this much is because decomposers are like the mushrooms and the fungi. And remember, fungi are not plants. They're not plants. They don't have chlorophyll and chloroplasts. They don't make their food from the sun. They get their energy from dead things. And think about this. This dead log would just stay a dead log forever and ever and ever. Man, we'd have dead logs everywhere. If these mushrooms wouldn't be growing on the dead leaves on the forest floor, those leaves will never go anywhere. But thanks to decomposers and God in His infinite wisdom, dead things get decomposed. They actually have, thanks to mushrooms and other fungi, the nutrients put back into the soil. If you're ever wondering what I've talked about, seeing decomposers in action, you might not see a lot of mushrooms everywhere. But if you ever gone and maybe you go out, up in the mountains to help them make wood, or maybe you have a wood pile behind, and there might be some wood that you haven't got to in a long time. If you ever go and it looks like a log, but you go and you pick it up and it kind of crumbles in your hand, it almost feels like dirt. Those mushrooms, those fungi were really going to work decomposing, and they're doing exactly that. Say, this thing used to be alive, it used to be a tree, it got its from the sun, made its own food, and now the fungi are taking that energy and putting it back into the soil, and so it almost crumbles in your hand, and it literally goes back into. Now, we're going back to the food web, which is what we started with, because this is what your assignment is going to be. You guys know, going back to food chains, it doesn't always work like sun, grass, zebra, lion, right? There's other animals. We talked about this in a community. There's all kinds of different populations in there. That's where the food web comes in. This is all the overlapping food chains, and it looks like it's just a whole bunch of lines. It looks like a spider web, and that's where it gets its name. It's kind of a blurry picture, I'm sorry, but again, I wish they had the sun down here, but it goes sun, plants, herbivores down here like a rabbit, a squirrel, right? But they don't just have foxes in their ecosystem. And it's not like the fox will sometimes say, oh, you guys, you go ahead and eat that rabbit, right? The animal world doesn't work like that. They're all competing for the food, right? And so you have foxes trying to eat the rabbit. You have owls trying to eat the rabbit. You have snakes trying to eat. And so there's all these different food webs all over the place. And then you have different kinds of bugs thrown in. And you have different animals that'll eat those bugs, and different other animals that'll eat those different rodents that eat the bugs. And so you have all these different food webs all over the place, right? I know we don't like to think of snakes, but think of this rattlesnake. It's not picky. If it can eat a rabbit, it's going to eat a rabbit. If it can eat a squirrel, it's going to eat a squirrel. If it can eat any other kind of small rodent, it's going to eat that. It's not picky, but as long as it can get a meal, it's getting a meal, right? That's why, if you think back to food web, lions don't just eat zebras, right? They'll eat a lot of different things, but there's a lot of other animals that also want to eat those things, because every living thing needs energy, and you get that energy by eating. Just like if you go to the doctor, your auntie and grandma tell you, oh, you feel so crummy and tired and lethargic, they're going to say, eat something. That'll help get you energy, and it actually does. And by the way, when auntie tells you to eat something healthy, listen to her. Because if you get a Mountain Dew and Cheetos, you are eating something, but you're giving your body bad energy. So if you think you're tired now, you're going to have a quick sugar rush, and you're going to be bouncing the walls, and then you're just going to crash because all your energy is wasted. But if you eat apple, or some nice vegetables, or bread, they're going to have long-lasting energy that lasts throughout the day. It's an amazing thing. Well, same with all the animals in the animal world. They all need energy. They all got to eat too, and they don't have animal McDonald's and animal Taco Bell. They got to go get their food. And there's all this competition, and that's where the food web comes into play. So, if we're going back to your assignment, remember what we started with, please. I'm asking you to open to page 88 and 89 in your science books and do what it says, please. Draw and label exactly what you see on page 88 and 89. If you don't have your science books, please copy from this sheet here. Don't just grab this and color it and slap your name on top. It's not what I'm asking you to do. But I am asking you to actually draw this on the blank sheet and then label it and color it. If you're wondering what labeling means, is this. I drew a lion. They didn't color it. The labeling simply what it is. What is this, you ask? You label it as a mountain lion. What is this? It's an insect-eating bird. That's how you label it. I know you can probably say, what is this? Everybody knows it, but I'm asking you to label it so everybody knows that it is a deer. Your assignment, I wish you guys the Lord's blessings today to praise and save you.